Hello everybody and welcome to Nathan on Shuffle and to my latest new album spotlight that I'm doing today. This is for the new David Longdon release, Door 1, which just came out very recently, and I'm excited to talk about it with you guys. These are the shows where I tell you guys about an album that's really been meaningful to me, that I really wanted to share with you guys and give some full thoughts about, and hopefully you guys will go off and check this one out because it's really deserving of your attention. So David Longdon was the multi-instrumentalist, lead singer, co-writer of the band Big Big Train, one of my all-time favorite prog groups. Unfortunately, he passed away last year unexpectedly after an accident in his home, I believe, leading to his untimely death on November 20th last year. But he was working on some material at that time, and it seems like that material was close to being finished. It was an album that was about 90% finished at his passing, and so it's been lovingly picked up and completed by family and friends and his fellow bandmates and people involved in his musical life, and they're bringing it to fruition now in a great way to celebrate his life and his contributions to the prog musical landscape and everything that he was about. So this is a really special album, and I'm sure brings up a lot of feelings for a lot of people because it, for the band members, for his family members, but also for the fans, this was a really tragic experience. This was really hard to deal with his passing because it happened so suddenly, and there was so much promise of what he was about to do with the band. The band had released a really incredible album, Common Ground, and were revitalized with a new lineup, and were excited about what was coming. They were working on a new album, Welcome to the Planet, which came out earlier this year, but unfortunately it just was such a tragic event that halted a lot of that excitement in a lot of ways, and just was such a tragic experience and took a lot of time for people to grieve and to come to terms with, and I'm sure people are still grieving and still coming to terms with it even now. And for many people it might be a difficult album to even listen to because of those memories and because of those difficult things that it brings to mind about his passing. But to me it's really a celebration of his life and his contributions to the musical landscape as a whole. He's one of my favorite musicians of the modern prog era, and so I'm really happy that this was released and that it's as good as it is, because it's really a fantastic statement. This was recorded with a core of 4 musicians: drummer Jeremy Stacey, bassist Steve Vancis, saxophonist Theo Travis, and David's longstanding friend and former bandmate Gary Bromham. So the album really proceeds with a lot of interesting storytelling, some really interesting musical ideas, and I like that it's somewhat separated from Big Big Train's music. You don't really get the big sweeping symphonic sound. It's not overtly proggy. It's much more about the songcraft and about the melodies and the storytelling. And it has a bit more of maybe a folky flavor at times. Also some rockers in the mix here, so it's a good variety of different types of music and really personifies David Longdon and his talents especially well. Into the Ice House begins the album as an instrumental with some piano and some sound effects, some nature sounds and things like that. Interesting sound design that begins the album. It's a bit moody and haunting, and even builds in its intensity as it continues forward with some swelling strings and an ominous vibe before it ends with some light guitar picking, leading into Watch It Burn, which is a really interesting, cool, heavy rocker. It starts with these really low, heavy piano notes to start, and adds in some acoustic guitar. It gives a sort of blues rock flavor with some interesting guitar licks. I feel like this album as a whole has a bit of a raw sound to it. Maybe that's a purposeful touch in the sound design, in the production, and I think it really speaks to just giving a full raw exposure to the artist and to what he's all about in these songs. And this track in particular is revisiting a toxic relationship that David Longdon had in his past. So, and that's sort of a theme throughout the album in a lot of ways, is that we're delving into some of these past relationships that maybe weren't the best for him, delving into some past history, bringing up past regrets and things like that. But at the end, talking about letting go of some of that and being able to embrace a new level of happiness and just embracing love in all of its facets. And I think in some ways that's a good trajectory for what the fans and what the people who've been grieving may need. I think it's a beautiful message that is baked in here. I don't think, this isn't a conceptual record. This is just a collection of different songs, but you can see how the artist was in somewhat of a certain mindset when crafting these songs. So it does add a measure of a concept around it, just based on his thoughts and the way he was feeling at the time of writing. Track number 3, There's No Ghost Like an Old Ghost. This is dealing with that past regret, as I mentioned, how things can resurface later in life that you regret in the past. Another interesting rocker here with a bit of a folk flavor in the mix. I really like how it goes in a more funky direction as it proceeds towards the end. There's some clavinet and some funky keys and some sax. It's just a really cool track that has these cool different flavors to it. I really like it. Then we get into more of a ballad with an anthemic feel, and singer in the song maybe almost feels like anthemic, like a Queen style song, especially with the soaring guitar solo towards the end. Just a really anthemic track that is basically about David Longdon and his own songcraft and how he feels as a singer. And so it's a really cool look at his artistry and how he feels about his placement in the musical landscape. Forgive But Not Forget is another highlight of the record, a beautiful ballad, really heartfelt and emotional, great performance, some beautiful acoustic guitar leads the piece before we get into a more soaring emotional electric guitar solo in the middle crescendo. So it's a really cool bit of songwriting. It really was one of the tracks that reminded me a bit of some classic Big Big Train. Sang Freud is a really great poppier song. It starts with this beautiful orchestral opening before it transitions into this quirky pop feel. So it's really interesting how it juxtaposes these quirky pop meters and sounds with more of a uplifting feel with the orchestra sweeping behind it. But it's this cool bouncy pop song that I really, really liked, and thought it had a good placement here after a couple of slower ballads. And then the Letting Go begins, which is one of the bigger, more extended epics on the album, about a 10-minute piece with a bit of a bluesy vibe as it builds, with little jazz touchstones with some sax from Theo Travis. Takes the listener on a great journey and has quite an epic build towards the end. I believe in reading about the lyrics here, it deals with some hypnotherapy sessions that David Longdon had as he was treating his fear of flying, but I think it can symbolize any fears or anything that holds you back and how you need to let go of it in order to proceed with life, in a bigger and better way. And then the album concludes with Love Is All, a sweet Beatles-esque ballad, a fitting conclusion for this album that, like I said, brings this more positive message that, beyond all of these demons in our past and all of these negative things that have happened, what really matters is love, and that we have love and in our hearts and love for other people. So love is really the answer here. And I think that's a beautiful closing message for an incredible artist who had such an indelible impact on me, on all of the fans, but in progressive music in general. His impact can be felt far and wide, and I think this is a fitting conclusion to his work, and I was really impressed with the album because besides having feelings of nostalgia for David Longdon's vocals and the warmth in his voice and his really interesting way of songwriting, I felt such emotion listening to this, knowing that this is essentially his last statement and it's personifying him as an artist and all that he was about, and it really brought some measure of catharsis and closure to the whole situation that I think was well needed for me, at least. I'm speaking more personally. This will be received by other people in different ways, but it really made me feel at peace and made me realize that he was such an incredible talent. And I'm really glad that this final statement really is a strong one and lands so well. So really recommend this album, even if you're not really well versed in Big Big Train or don't know David Longdon very well. I think this is a very strong album that showcases an incredible artist. It's not very overtly proggy as most of the stuff I cover is, but it has little touchstones of those proggy moments from Big Big Train and other places. But it's just solid songwriting. It's really well crafted, very interesting, and has some great themes and some great writing. So really definitely worth checking out. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you appreciated this review, and we'll go out and check the album if you like what you heard about here. Thank you guys for the support for the channel and for joining me on these episodes. And hopefully you're out there enjoying the music in whatever capacity you have going. So thank you guys so much, and I'll catch you guys in a future video. Bye, everybody.